Hello, everyone. I am Freg from the Hammer of Wrath Holy Paladin Discord. Normally, I don't really do video content, but I figured for today it could be interesting to have a little discussion about how our two new tier set bonuses for the War Within Season 3 function. In Manaforge Omega, we're going to be equipping a tier set for each for hero talents. For Holy Paladin, these tier sets strongly double down on the strengths of those talent trees and don't really change how you play. Instead, they just focus on strengthening what you already knew going into it from Season 2. So, first off, let's dive into the Herald of the Sun talent tree. This set is going to be really strong for pretty much every form of content, and it's no exaggeration to say that as it stands, you'll likely wear it in both dungeons and raids. The two-piece reads that Dawnlight's healing and damage is increased by 30%, and you gain Solar Wrath after your Avenging Wrath fades, causing Sun's avatar's effect to linger for an additional 10 seconds. This means that you're going to get a nice buff to your Dawnlight Hot and your Radiating Healing as well. Much more interestingly, though, you get to extend the beam windows after your wings end, which is going to give you a bit more flexibility when you apply your Dawnlights. However, the four-piece is when you truly come online. It reads, Solar Wrath increases the effectiveness of your Holy Power spenders by 15% and grants you 2 Dawnlight. The 15% isn't super interesting, but the 2 Dawnlights is really where the magic happens, because that means after your wings fall off, you get to apply 2 more Dawnlights, and you have beams for another 10 seconds. Along with the 15% buff to your spenders, you're going to be blasting off here. Awakening is going to keep the same buff duration of 10 seconds, but it only gives you 1 Dawnlight to spend. So in a raid setting, this means you're going to be able to use your Avenging Wrath, cast your Holy Prism, apply your Dawnlights, and play your normal rotation. And if during this window you also proc your Awakening stacks, then at the end of your rings, you're going to have 20 seconds of Sun's Avatar, and your Prism is going to be ready to go again, so you can pop off another 5 Dawnlights for an extended version of your burst window. Needless to say, this is extremely strong, and it does feel very good to play with. One of my chief complaints of the Season 2 Herald was that you felt like all your power was concentrated into some very small windows. But now here, with Solar Wrath having somewhere between 25 and 30% uptime, your windows are going to be much more spread out, and it feels like you have much more time to do your healing, and it just flows very well. Now for the Lightsmith set, which is unfortunately marred by some amount of bugs. Your two-piece is the most interesting part, and it makes your Hammer and Anvil heal for 15% more, and your Crusader Strike also activates Hammer and Anvil, but at a reduced effectiveness, so it's no longer just Judgment. It's very good. It means you get way more opportunities to pop the Hammer and Anvil because you're not just rolling a single coin flip on one ability with a cooldown, so you get to be a lot more consistent with your healing. But it also means that you're putting a lot more eggs in your Hammer and Anvil basket, and more of your overall healing is going to come from this ability. The four-piece then reads that Hammer and Anvil grants stacks of Masterwork, which is a buff that causes your next Holy Armament to cast a lesser version of itself on a nearby ally for each stack. The stacks up to 5 times, and any stack over 5 goes on a random target. The lesser swords can currently go on any target that isn't you, which also includes pets, and they have a very high variance. So sometimes you might see that they do 5 healing, and sometimes they might do 5,000 healing. It's very hard to get a consistent read on it. During testing, this set bonus accounted for about 1 to 2% healing, but did do decent amounts of damage. I'm not sold on the 4 set, and I'm not sure if they're going to make it work very well, because it's just way too RNG. You're layering layers of RNG onto RNG. Currently with Lightsmith already, if you don't get a crit, you don't get healing. But now if you don't get a crit, you don't get healing, you don't get more swords. If you want to use your hero power, the bulwarks and the swords, you're maybe getting 1, you're maybe getting 5, but it all depends how lucky you've been with your crits. If you run into a drought, you might get nothing. I do love the idea of Lightsmith. I think with Avenging Wrath, it plays really well. It's nice having a more simple and easy to play version of the spec, one that you don't need to set up all sorts of timers and weak auras for. Um, it has very consistent healing as well, but unfortunately, the healing profile isn't super useful either. It's a lot of shielding on you and the tank, which tanks are mainly self sufficient, so they don't need it too much. I don't think they're going to rework it, but I don't think that it's going to be very useful in most forms of raiding. I can see it used in keys if you don't need healing, but why would you bring a set that just does tank healing? It's I fail to see the niche that this really fills in. I do have very high hopes for Paladin in season 3, though, and I look forward to playing a lot more Herald of the Sun. Um, I think it's going to be one of the best versions of Holy Paladin we've had in modern WoW. And as it stands, the numbers also look pretty good. You're not going to be far behind so long as your wings windows aren't going to be eaten up by overhealing. So, with all that said, feel free to come visit us over in the Hammer of Wrath Paladin Discord if you have any questions. In the comments, I've pinned a deep dive by the moderator Clarius, who also writes for Wowhead. And I want to shout out a big thank you to Herix from spiritbloom.pro for the format of this video.